A long time ago, in a film studio far, far away, a man by the name of George Lucas created a film that forever changed the world of cinema. Few films have landed with as big an impact and left as big an imprint on the world of pop culture as Star Wars. And so, in celebration of May the 4th, we're blasting open this cinema classic on this episode of Script or Screen.
Thank you, Zach, for that wonderful intro that only took you one time and took me a billion more for whatever reason. And welcome back to the lovely show, Script or Screen.
We're back.
May the 4th be with you. May the Revenge of the 5th be also with you. Lift
and
up
with
your
you
hearts.
as well.
Yeah, there you go.
Is lift
you know,
up your
Zach,
hearts a Star Wars quote?
No, it's in Catholicism.
Cool.
You weren't raised Catholic.
I wasn't.
No. Well, your boy here was, and so he knows all the things. So when people say, may the 4th be with you, I love saying, and with your spirit.
Sweet.
Because that's what they fucking changed it to. Anyways, hey, everybody, you lovely listeners. My name is Christopher Kitchen. As always, I'm your co-host here with the beautiful, wonderful, and handsome Zach Strackman. Zach, how are you doing?
I'm chilling out, maxing, relaxing, all cool.
Are you shooting some Star Wars b-balls?
Outside the school? Yes, I am. We're back again for another exciting episode.
I gotta tell you, man, as a fellow Star Wars lover, I'm excited that we're getting into more of the intricate tales of Star Wars, of older Star Wars. In fact,
and as someone who has grown increasingly more apathetic towards Star Wars as newer products have productions, I should say, have left me a bit wanting. It's nice to go back and experience it in its purest form.
I gotta tell you though, like, how could you say that? How could you not enjoy this? I gotta be honest, because on this May 4th, which we're hoping this will come out on, if not, Revenge of the 5th is always a great second day. I'm super excited because I'm a big fan of, I want to say, almost everything Star Wars. I'm a hoe for Star Wars, as I've said.
You have said that a few times
on this show. Bad Batch, the sequel series to the Clone Wars, or I guess the mid sequel, because there's also Rebels.
It's a spin-off.
It's a spin-off. It's coming out, and it's going to take place in a time period which is, loved by all. And
that would be wedged in between episode 3 and episode 4.
Yeah. We find that a lot of these cool shows are kind of in that period.
Yeah.
Like Rogue One, like Solo, like what else? I can't even fucking think of things right now.
Rebels.
They have so many things out right now.
Yeah,
I'm just excited. I love Star Wars. Even though there's things about Star Wars I don't like.
I love Star Wars too, but it's like there was a time when like I could really enjoy Star Wars for like a lot of like strong creative intent and a lot of attempts to tell a good story or try to be original or go in places and directions we've never seen before. But like so often it's like they just fall back on the familiar, and I just I think what honestly killed it for me was Rise of Skywalker. I left that movie and I was just like, I'm almost done with Star Wars at this point.
Yeah, Rise of Skywalker also left a bad taste in my mouth as well. But I want to say, when we got like the Mandalorian and stuff,
Mandalorian's great. Mandalorian, I can't complain too much about that. Yeah. Occasionally, there's some stuff in Mandalorian that rubs me the wrong way.
No, but even like when we got even the continuation of Clone Wars, we got a final season, and I know you still haven't watched it. But like as a fan of that show as well, like they're still giving me stuff that I like and I want. So I'm not. I don't know, man. It's just this galaxy, this creation. It's a really nice place for me to find myself.
Yeah, I mean, I think for me, I just see it as a massive waste of potential.
Yeah.
So often because, listen, I've said it before. George Lucas was a genius. He came up with this amazing playground with all these amazing and creative toys and resources, and continually Lucasfilm just goes and recycles the same stuff. They keep playing with the same toys in the same area, and I'm like, you can do anything. You can do anything you want. Don't, but whatever. We're getting way out there. Star Wars, the first one, when it was literally just Star Wars.
Let me ask you, Zach. How old were you when the original Star Wars came out?
I don't know. My dad was probably like in his 20s, and
so you're saying you were probably still somewhere swimming in the void?
No, I don't think I was even a sperm at that point.
My dad tells me this funny story that, him and my uncle, they were going to the movies, and my dad's like, oh God, what is this children's movie? I want to go see, I think it was like The Spy Who Loved Me, or like one of the James, it's one of the James Bond films at the time. And so he went to go see that instead, while my uncle and my grandmother went into Star Wars for the first time. And he came out loving it. So my dad, I want to say, was a late adopter to Star Wars versus my uncle, who loved it like the second it blared out on screen. And he would also like to claim to this day that he's the one that got me super into it. Maybe that's right, maybe that's wrong. My dad still supported it for years to come. To the point where I've seen every Star Wars film in theaters with my dad. I think he's trying to prove a point, though.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know even like how I first. I mean, probably through my parents. I got introduced to Star Wars as
how early?
Most people.
I was gonna say, how early did you watch it?
Oh, young as hell.
Give us a number. Give us an age.
Probably like, I don't know, 5 years old, maybe.
That sounds about right. Yeah, I feel like I was super young. But what's crazy is that I don't think this film, like narratively, had such an impact on me versus just like what I was watching. Like the visuals.
Right, of course.
Like I feel like I didn't have that moment where I freaked out about like it, the Empire situation where Luke finds out he does have a dad and that's alive and also a bad guy, and like Leia is his brother or whatever. Actually, I'll tell you, or sister, excuse me. Whoa,
Leia, big reveal.
Yeah. But no, at the same time, like I don't think those things, I had that shock value just because I was so young when I watched it. And what young kids do is they watch things on repeat 1,000 times because like,
sure, of course.
Repetition just works really well for childhood development. That's
not a children thing. Sometimes, I mean, I do that all the time.
Yeah, me too. You actually hate when I do that, though. You say I need to watch new things and not the same thing 20,000 times in a row.
Well, I mean, it's true, but be that as it may, I don't think Star Wars is it's not meant to be a very challenging narrative. It's the plot is almost like you don't need to really know the details of the plot. It's more of the adventure,
That is true.
It's a farm boy and a drug smuggler and a hermit going to save a princess, and it's about the fun along the way. It's not meant to be deep. It's not meant to be anything more than what it is.
Yeah, and I think that's also exemplified in the serial nature of its opening crawl.
Yes.
we're given.
Actually, I was gonna say about that opening crawl. In lieu of a synopsis this week, why don't you hit the our lovely listeners with the opening crawl?
I will,
which I have provided for you right here.
I saw you highlight it, Zachary. Thank you. It is a period of civil war. Rebel spaceships striking from a hidden base have won their first victory against the evil Galactic Empire. During the battle, Rebel spies managed to steal secret plans to the Empire's ultimate weapon, the Death Star, an armored space station with enough power to destroy an entire planet. Pursued by the Empire's sinister agents, Princess Leia races home aboard her starship, custodian of the stolen plans that can save her people and restore freedom to the galaxy. Dude.
Yeah.
Can we just say something? The interpretation of this opening crawl, from this from 1977 or 76, I guess, when it was written, to today's day has, you could dissect. This inspired an entire feature film. Number one, also it kind of lies, because I'll tell you what. At least in Rebels, I can imagine a lot of victories against the Empire before this event happened. And
here's the thing. Okay. It doesn't lie. It doesn't lie because this is the movie that decided everything. It is just a failure on the later creative people who decided they couldn't work with the parameters laid out for them.
Yeah,
that's neither here nor there. But it's like there's a point in the movie later when, or not even later. It's like in the first couple of scenes when Darth Vader's talking with one of the officers, and the officer's talking about, this attack will drum up sympathy for the rebels with the Imperial Senate, and I'm like, but there shouldn't be a Senate, because the whole point of Episode 3 was that the Senate got abolished in favor of an empire.
Yeah,
and it's like, a lot of rules were set up in the first movie that were just kind of ignored in favor of storytelling, which I don't care, personally.
Well, all right, fine. We won't get into those intricacies, but dude, this is still a great way to open the film, any movie.
I love it.
I don't know. I feel like I'm not too familiar with Flash Gordon and all these 70s childlike serials of television.
Right. Well, Flash Gordon's way before the 70s.
Well, I guess if you look at the original, but then you have the one with what's his name? Who's the football player?
Oh yeah, that's in the 80s.
Is that the 80s?
Yes.
I'm dating myself, Zach. I'm 25 years old. I am the young boy of the show. I know nothing. I am like Jon Snow in that matter.
I was actually 1980 specifically.
Oh, okay. Well, I guess Flash Gordon existed long before then. I know nothing.
Way before that. That's okay. But yeah, it's very. I mean, George Lucas wanted to make a Flash Gordon film, and he couldn't get the rights, so he said, "Okay, I'll make my own thing," and it's basically Flash Gordon. But that's cool because I mean, it has that same feel, and the opening crawl is so integral to that because it's like it drops you in, it lets you know what you need to know to prime you for the adventure you're about to see, and it's always fun going into a new Star Wars movie, good or bad, and seeing the opening crawl, because sometimes they don't get it right. Sometimes it's a little too detail heavy. I feel like I think the first episode 1 and 2 have terrible crawls, but episode 3, I love the opening crawl for 3 because it's war.
It's just in the moment of that part of the film, just like the first one. It's not about all this other BS.
Yeah, it's cool. It's I always think maybe this is what you're reading if a newspaper came out during wartime.
But I have a big but for you, because
Thank you.
You know what? At the same time, with that logic, then I guess you could say the opening crawl for Rise of Skywalker isn't too bad.
It's no.
Come on. I mean, it just sucks that this is what it is, but it's
I mean, listen. Starting the dead speak, that is actually a really fun way to start it. As terrible as the plot of Rise of Skywalker is, for a way to dress it up that is actually kind of clever, it's this bold statement of the dead speak.
Here's the thing: it's after watching Rise of Skywalker, I think I've seen it a total 3 times. Every time I watch it, there's more things about it I do like. I don't want to say it's growing on me because overall it will not. But there are certain aspects of it that I thought were good, but it does get lost. The silver linings get lost in the overall planning and execution of some of it. Yeah, it's not. Listen, as I've said, I'm a big proponent of The Last Jedi, and really,
Yes.
this it does not go in the direction that Last Jedi set. Last Jedi set up so many opportunities, and this one this is not the Last Jedi podcast.
We will talk about The Last Jedi in I don't know, like 7 episodes, but 7 Star Wars episodes. I mean, because I imagine we're gonna go in order of release for these films.
Mm-hmm.
So let's first, before we forget, we have some social medias that our lovely listeners should definitely check out. We got Facebooks, and we got Instagrams, and we got, I think, Twitter.
We do have Twitter. It's just it's lacking in a couple ways, shapes, and forms, but that's okay, because you can still follow us on there, and all of our links and services are still on there. And don't forget, Zach, you could also watch YouTube in case you love time loops of our voices and just our logo animation, and you just want to listen to it in the background while you're surfing the web, doing some work, making a spreadsheet, anything really.
Yeah.
And don't forget, you can find us on our website, www.scriptorscreen.com, also anchor.fm/scriptorscreen. There, you can check out all of our past episodes, links to your favorite audio listening platforms for podcasts,
Chris, what if I have something I need to say, and what if I want to say it to you or to me, and what if I have a suggestion for an episode or something that I want to hear people talk about?
Wow, Zach, that's a great question. You can use the link on our website to send us a message. You could also go to our social media platforms and comment on our posts or send us messages there. And then we'll be able to get all the feedback from, from our wonderful listeners.
But Chris, where can I even find these episodes?
As I just said, you can go on our website and find the past episodes there.
But what if I want a specific podcast app?
Oh, are you talking about Apple Podcasts? Are you talking about Google Podcasts? Anchor?
Maybe.
Overcast?
Maybe.
iHeartRadio? Amazon Music? Spotify?
Maybe.
There's so many. Actually, there's one I want to get on that I just heard about now. Maybe we are on it. Give me 2 seconds. Zach, can I get some elevator music, please?
Da, 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 da.
Oh, okay, good. I'm glad you did that one. It's actually, so it's on, I don't know if you heard about this one. It's called Odyssey. Have you heard about this?
I know of Homer's Odyssey.
I think it's named after that. Odyssey Music. I'm going to just Google it really quickly and see if we're already on there, because we could be. Sometimes they take the feeds. But sometimes they don't. I'll get back to you on that. But that's our
here.
spiel.
While you I was gonna say, while you look that up, I'll
lead
break
us in.
down some of the. Well, so okay, we got this Star Wars film, right? And it came out in 1977. It was written and directed by a little guy by the name of George Lucas, who at one time it seemed like he could do no wrong, but that was before the prequels, before the dark times. The film was produced by Gary Kurtz, who I mean, he made some pretty big decisions in how Star Wars progressed throughout the years, and music by John Goddamn Williams. If you have heard some of the best theme songs to some of the best movies, there's a chance that John Williams has done it. I mean, he did Star Wars, he did Jaws, he did Indiana Jones, he did Harry Potter. The list goes on and on. And he is probably like my second favorite film composer. What about you, Chris? Where does John Williams fall?
I would say
in your.
He's probably done every score that I've ever loved, ever. Like,
yeah,
I think about it because I mean, listen, he's even done like Harry Potter and crap. You know, like I a Harry Potter head. I enjoy the movies, but the world and
who's
the
your
lore.
favorite? Who's your favorite film composer?
Ennio Morricone is pretty great. But I also feel like that's something anybody could say. They're like, oh, I don't want to sound like I'm some sort of elitist because I'm not. I mean, I'd be a fool not to say John Williams. I do like Hans Zimmer. I like Danny Elfman. I am a big fan right now of Trent Reznor and Atticus Ross. I just like their names.
Well, yeah, I mean they're solid. I think for me, it's John Williams is up there, but I gotta give it to Howard Shore.
Really?
Yeah, man. Just like I can't listen to the Lord of the Rings music without just like being like elevated into like a transcendent being.
Yeah, honestly, that's pretty good too. I'm trying to think.
But I mean, John Williams, just obviously Star Wars is probably some of if not his best work, and he brings so much emotion into so many things. And it's funny because there's so many songs that are associated with John Williams with Star Wars that don't even show up in this movie. The Imperial March is not in this movie, and Han and Leia's theme is not in this movie. So
Han and Leia's theme is like one of the best, if not the most like. And also, you have like the song at the very end, right? Or like Return of the Jedi. That's not even in this.
Yeah, what? Oh, there's two songs. One was by John Williams and one was not. They replaced the old one, the Yup Tup, with
I do like Yup Tup.
And then John Williams actually like really awesome score for the end of it. But what do you think? What would you say is your favorite piece of music from this first Star Wars film?
The very opening, the crawl, the opening theme that later just became the Star Wars theme. It's probably the most amazing. Well, the thing is that each version, because he does a new one for every Star Wars film that he's done, is slightly different than the next, right? And
it kind of evolves with the movies.
Exactly, and I forget where I read that like the exact differences. But this one, for me, it's just it's the most exciting. It's the most brand new of them all, and I think it was meant to be like that. Like the start of this adventure, and then later on, I guess it's two parts, right? It's the very opening to the film, and it's also the very ending because it's all one piece.
Well, I was gonna say the throne room music for the end of the film when they're having the medal ceremony is, oh my, I love that. Just the blasting of the trumpets and just it's so good because it uses the motif of his Force theme. Yeah. And
I also have to say, actually, the Twin Sons, Luke's theme, and then the Cantina, these are all iconic things. We're not saying anything new. We're just a part of this communal whole. But at the same time, it's just like...
Of course, the Cantina with the Jizz Whalers.
What are Biths? Oh, the band is called the Jizz Whalers.
Yeah.
There you go.
Well... Yeah, the Jizz Whaler is just a musician who...
that's what they play.
And again, I think I've said this before, and I need to correct myself. So in the Cantina, they don't play Jizz. Max Rebo in Return of the Jedi is Jizz Whaler.
Jesus. That is I don't know how I feel about that. How do you feel about that?
I like Max Rebo. He's a little blue elephant boy.
Oh, boy.
Oh, sorry. Hey, I'm putting a pause. I said something last episode when we were talking about Game of Thrones, and I needed to correct myself. I said they filmed The Long Night over the course of 55 weeks. It was 55 days is what I meant to say. It was 11 weeks.
That sounds like something you should have added in the beginning of the podcast. We're talking about...
I forgot.
A Star Wars.
Anyway, so moving on... hey, the cinematography in this film was by Gilbert Taylor. You just talked about the twin suns. Is there ever been a more evocative shot in Star Wars than Luke standing on the hill looking at the twin suns, the binary sun, what is it? Is it binary sunset or whatever? I forget what it's called, but
I'm just gonna call it the twin suns.
Yeah, and just that shot, or him seeing his family, Uncle Owen and Aunt Beru burnt to death, standing in front of like the smoldering ruins.
No, I want to say these are all very impressive. What's even more impressive though is like how they film. You know, when not only does this, I don't want to say I'm entirely familiar with all of his filmography, but the use of the camera work with the miniatures as well to create like space flight, and just like all these different shots. It was also pretty transformative. I mean, like, you got to remember this, the work that he established here, as well as George, ended up creating an entire new way of filming. You know?
Yeah, I mean they absolutely, and really the use of miniatures, it gives everything such a physicality that I feel like is missing a lot of times in later films.
I disagree. Because you know what, I disagree with at least one, two. With how many more movies outside of the first trilogy? So out of the 6 movies that follow the first trilogy, I think there's only one film that uses significantly less miniatures or actual things, like actual sets, than other ones. And it's surprisingly one of the better ones of these following 6 films.
Which one?
Episode 3.
Aha. Well, that's because they needed the scale.
Yeah, but I mean, it lacked in a lot of other regards.
Well, regardless, cinematography on point. Thank you, Gilbert Taylor, wherever you may be. Check this out. This film had a budget of $11 million back in 1977. I don't know what it's in today dollars, but in its original run from 77 to 78, it made $265 million. That's a lot of simoleons. Let me tell you.
Read the next line.
Yeah. Well, I was gonna let it hit so that way I could follow it up with the real kicker. Total all-time box office off an $11 million film from every theatrical release from the first to the mid 90s, or of all time. I don't know when the last time it was put in theaters. $775 million.
Zach, you want to know what that is adjusted for inflation?
Please.
So, adjusted for inflation, Star Wars is the 4th highest grossing film of all time, right behind Gone with the Wind, Avatar, and Titanic at $3.071 billion.
Jesus Christ.
The only film, the Avengers Endgame is right behind it. Okay. But that's, like I said, adjusted for inflation. To think this was the number 3 film before Avatar. It's just insane, you know?
Yeah.
Like that it has this kind of impact. And you got to think the year, I think it was 1978, it was also nominated for a bunch of Academy Awards, winning a lot of the more technical stuff. So that being... So it was George Lucas himself was nominated for directing and writing. And then Alec Guinness was nominated for Best Supporting Actor. But then you also have categories like visual effects, art direction, sound, costume design, and the score. You know, winning most of those awards, excluding George Lucas himself. Oh, and editing, I should say.
Right.
But it's, you know, this was...
Yeah, I mean, it was
acclaimed. This film was incredibly well received.
It's a landmark. It's a landmark of film accomplishment. Let's look at this cast real fast before. I just want to kind of give all of them a shout out, and then we can kind of dig into the characters, because it's the characters of this movie that matter the most, not the action, not the spectacle. I think what really made this movie work is there were such good characters. So we got Mark Hamill as Luke Skywalker, the hero. And I don't mean that as in just like the hero of the movie, but he is like as you know, as integral to like the idea of the hero archetype that then like, you know, any others. I feel like if someone said show me a traditional hero, I say it's Luke Skywalker.
Yeah. I'm definitely, you know, I feel like everybody thinks about like the quintessential. This is almost, it's not a coming of age, but like Luke Skywalker grows up in a matter of, I don't know, 2 hours in this film?
Well, it's funny because, like, you know, this, obviously, we're not breaking any new ground here, but Star Wars, it follows Joseph Campbell's monomyth. So, a lot of the characters are just kind of just archetypes. You know, Mark Hamill, it's the hero's journey, and so he is the hero, and he follows the hero's journey to a T. There's nothing really out there in terms of like, you know, extrapolating further characterization beyond that. We get later movies that kind of delve more into his personality and his character, but in this, he's really just meant to be this very, you know, very typical hero character, and he nails it.
Yeah. I actually have a copy here of the writer's journey, which is just Christopher Volger's reiteration of the hero's journey right here on my desk. Mm-hmm. So I'm holding on, tapping it on the front cover as a good boy gesture to this book. Because you know what? There's also what do you have? I want to see if I can go to the page where it talks about the other roles of these characters. So here's the hero's journey. We have The Ordinary World, Call to Adventure. Oh, this is all good stuff.
Yeah, I mean, it's the whole hero's journey cycle. It's you can apply it. It's not even like, you know, I think some people think of it as like a rule set, but it's more of like a series of patterns. Well, it's a series of patterns that Joseph Campbell recognized.
Barbosa's like,
oh, right.
We refer to them more as guidelines.
Right, yeah, Pirates of the Caribbean. Ha 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 ha. But anyway, we've got Alec Guinness as Obi-Wan Kenobi. He is our, you know, the wizard who comes to the hero and whisks him away. He's the call to adventure. We have Harrison Ford as Han Solo, the coolest dude who ever Star Wars did.
This is probably the film series and franchise that made him one of the highest paid actors of not of all time, but like
of his time.
I want to say, is he like one of the highest paid male actors of all time?
I feel like we could find out, but let's just say yes. He did it. He's the highest paid actor of all time.
Okay.
That is a true statement. Next, we have Carrie Fisher as Princess Leia Organa. So this is something I had to look up because I wasn't sure when I was making these notes. I was like, was she Leia Organa in this movie? Right? I couldn't remember if she was just Princess Leia here or if they gave her full name. So I looked it up, and sure enough, where was it? It says here that in the original draft of it, she was meant to be Leia Antilles, and her planet was going to be called Organa Major, and it wasn't until a later draft of the script that she became Leia Organa, and her planet became Alderaan.
I mean, that's just kind of like the Luke Starkiller, and then he became Luke Skywalker kind of thing.
And how like Chewbacca was like a weird like not Wookiee creature.
But then we later got Zeb in Star Wars Rebels.
Right. They definitely repurposed a lot of the Ralph McQuarrie concept art. Speaking of Chewbacca, Peter Mayhew as Chewbacca.
Rest in power, King. Rest in power.
Yeah, I mean, he was Chewbacca, all the way until Last Jedi?
Last Jedi, I think he had to supervise Jonas. I forget his last name. But the guy who would end up replacing him, just because the knees, he's been on a cane for a number of years now. But everybody said that he did a great job mentoring him into the Chewbacca shoes, or I should say the
Right.
Chewbacca hair, rather.
And his man, again, I did not know until Force Awakens that Chewbacca had giant meaty fingers, and it was such an upsetting revelation to me.
Jesus, what do you think he had? Just like paws?
I don't know, just fluffy. I didn't need to
How would
see
he
his
pull a
big
trigger?
sausage fingers. I don't know. Anyway, now we have two of the biggest mainstays of the Star Wars universe: Anthony Daniels as C3PO,
Anthony.
and
Zach,
Kenny Baker.
say it with me. Anthony.
Is it Anthony?
Yeah. There was
Pretty sure it's Anthony.
No, there was an interview where J.J. Abrams said on stage with Anthony Daniels, he says, like, I didn't know this for a number of years until I started working with you, that your name's not actually Anthony, it's Antony, and you're just too nice to correct people. And everybody had a good laugh. And he even talks about it in his book, I believe.
How very C3PO of him. And then Kenny Baker as R2d2. Kenny Baker, who, he obviously he just made R2 move, but I feel like he is as integral to the character as anything else.
Yeah, they always are. I mean, he's great.
That's all of our good guys, and we have only a couple of bad guys. We got Peter Cushing as Grand Moff Tarkin, who is a very cool bad guy, and also was a subject of a bit of controversy with Rogue One when they recreated his face.
I loved it. I don't care what anybody says. I loved it.
I think for the most part it looks pretty good. There's a few points where I could be like, that's a CGI face, but for the most part they did pretty good.
For the people that pretty much founded that technology to be able to de-age and kind of recreate faces and stuff like that, from seeing the progression from Tron later to Star Wars. I don't know. I'd say it's pretty impressive because then we also got that in Thanos. So it's all stepping stones and milestones, and the cases I just named, I like them every single time, and they only get better. So I don't know. Before we move on, I wanted to mention this.
Oh yeah.
Did you know Anthony Daniels voiced Legolas in the animated adaptation of The Lord of the Rings from 1978?
I think I knew that. Yeah.
That's actually pretty awesome.
Yeah, he's a pretty good actor, and I mean, like, anytime I think of C3PO, I just think of Anthony Daniels in there. Have you heard the Slave Leia story?
Which one?
With him, where he, in Return of the Jedi, how he was in the suit, and when those eyes are on, he can see out, but no one can see his eyes. And so he was positioned behind Jabba and behind Carrie Fisher, who's wearing her Slave Leia bikini, and the bikini top did not sit flush with her boobs, and so it's like the whole time he was standing behind her, he was just staring down at her boobs the whole time.
Oh God.
Yeah.
I think we should make a correction, Zach. I don't know if you know this, but Disney has since retitled that version of Leia. It's not Slave Leia anymore. It's Slayer Leia.
Ugh.
Because she slayed Jabba the Hutt.
Oh my God. It's like, whatever.
We're being appropriate now.
Anyway, we'll talk more about Slave Leia and when we'll cover Return of the Jedi, because Carrie Fisher has a very hilarious story of an interaction with a fan or a parent of a child regarding that costume in that scene. But we'll cover that later on. But last but not least in the cast, we have the one, the only James Earl Jones as Darth Vader. And of course, David Prowse in the suit.
Dude. Well, I think the James Earl Jones bit didn't even happen until the very end of production too, right? You've
seen the videos of David Prowse doing the lines.
I liked his voice, to be honest. I wasn't totally against it.
He has such a soft voice.
I'll tell you what I think personally about this role too.
You are part of the Rebel Alliance and a traitor. Take her away.
But let me tell you what. I listened to James Earl Jones in this, and his voice is infamous. Not infamous, but it's incredible.
Iconic.
Yeah, it is iconic. It's very noticeable and known. But I listened to it in Star Wars, and then I listened to it in Empire, and then I'll listen to it in like Rogue One, or I'll go to like what is the Lion King, right? Both the new one and the older one, and it's just like you can really tell like the differences in it. I feel like in this film, the original Star Wars is the most different than it sounds in any other voiceover work he's ever done.
I love the way his voice sounds in this movie. He is so okay. Like,
but
so
am I crazy? Like, do you hear the difference between this one and Empire, or do you think it's super similar?
No, there's a difference. I think he's given a lot more to work with in the later movies.
Yeah.
In this first movie, he's just meant to be scary and imposing, and he is scary and imposing. I mean, the way he delivers in this first movie, I think Darth Vader is at his like most intimidating, because that's what he's supposed to be.
You. I could hawk. I disagree.
What would you? I mean, are you gonna say Rogue One in the one scene he's in?
With today's knowledge, right? Which I'll include Rogue One in that. But even like if you look at Empire,
I like Empire.
Empire, he's definitely much more a force to be reckoned with. A force.
I get it.
Than in this film. In this film, he has one okay scene, but like what? Because he's in a giant black metal suit. We're supposed to be afraid of him?
Because, I'll tell you why.
Again, I am speaking with retrospect, and also not being a 7-year-old boy in the theater watching this for the first time.
I'm telling you why I think he is pretty freaky in this movie is because at the beginning of the movie, he kills a man, not with the Force.
With his hands.
He chokes the life out of a man with his bare robot hands.
I don't know why. For some reason,
that is something we never see him do later in any movies, is actually just kill a man with his hands, like, and he's holding the dude up like just on his own strength, just off the floor, man. Like, and like the way he delivers lines, he when he says like, I want her alive, and when he's talking to Princess Leia, and he's like pointing at her, and he's like, you are part of the Rebel Alliance and a traitor. Take her away.
That's like probably one of my favorite quotes from this movie, because whenever people are trying to defend themselves to me out of context, I'll just say that to them, and I'll walk away, and they're like, I was just asking where the bathroom was, and I'm like, sorry.
Well, I always say, I have altered the deal. Pray I don't alter it any further.
See, that's a good one. That actually works with your job too. I would say you could say that to the people that go to you for work, and then you could just say that to them, and
that's true.
They would be like, "What the hell? I'm going to sue."
But man, like I just really liked Vader in this. I like that in this movie he's not meant to be a complex, like, multi-dimensional person. He's just meant to be a force of nature, which again,
it only actually strengthens his character going forward into these films too.
Yeah,
he does have good foundation.
Yeah, and like we get some cool like back and forth between him and Kenobi, but like I think the most interesting scene with him is when he is force choking Admiral Mahdi.
I wrote some of my notes about that scene. If you'll allow me to scroll down there in a moment,
please.
Because you know what, like, we don't even get to see him be scary against good guys, right? Or at least the protagonist in this film. We see him fucking scary against the antagonists of this film, and like the League, the Empire that he's a part of, right? Mm-hmm. And in of itself, I think that says even more about how scary and how, like, he actually is. Like, not only do the people across the galaxy are supposed to fear him, but like his own cohorts fear him for the things that he says and does.
So yes, 100%. And then I want to add on top of that. So he goes and he starts force choking Admiral Mahdi, whatever. And what happens then? Tarkin goes, Vader, enough, release him. And Vader does. So whatever we find out about Tarkin in like Clone Wars and whatever relationship, I don't care. In this one movie, it makes him seem like such a badass.
It's kind of like Cersei, who has control over the mountain, right? Like,
Or yeah, I mean, it's just like who it
For
makes
a
you feel
modern
like
comparison.
God. If Vader listens to Tarkin, who the hell is this Tarkin guy?
it does. And I'll tell you what, that this one scene, on top of all this, like, it shows you the power dynamic. It also establishes a lot of things that'll be used, and just, they'll generate, just more world building and just also kind of myths, like, in the universe, right? You have the mention of, like, the last remnants of the old Republic have been, disintegrated, or, that's when they're talking about the Senate bit. And then you have the iconic line from Vader, like, the ability to destroy a planet is insignificant next to the power of the Force. Like, dude, and then it's like, oh, you're conjuring in old sorcery ways or whatever, and, he gets choked out, like you say.
Well, yeah, they set that up as like a big a point of comparison between Vader and Obi-Wan, because Mahdi badmouths the Force and almost dies for it. Later, Han Solo badmouths the Force, and Obi-Wan's just like, whatever.
Yeah. So, but it's just like, dude, you got to think about it. Like, this is it's probably one of my favorite scenes in the entire film.
It's really good, and I think again, it makes Vader seem intimidating. It makes Tarkin seem intimidating. But man, yeah, they're the coolest.
Can I switch gears for a moment?
Please.
Well, while we're talking characters, I want to go back to some of our pro tags.
I have much to say about our pro tags.
So we see this the baddies, right? Are we the baddies? We have that example. So now we look at our heroes. And before we get into Han Solo and Leia, we find ourselves with Luke and his mysterious new friend, Obi-Wan Kenobi. Ben Kenobi.
I'm going to stop you there.
Why?
I'm going to stop you there because before we
Are you
get...
going to talk about R2d2 C3po?
We don't get Luke Skywalker until 17 minutes into this film.
That's true. We get Uncle Owen and Aunt Beru before we get Luke.
Yeah, we get C3PO, we get R2D2. I love the fact that they don't that if their escape pod had been blown up, none of Star Wars would have happened.
Yeah.
But because the one Imperial guy is like, oh, it must have short-circuited, and launched, that dude basically brought down the entire empire.
Let me tell you something, though. I just love, like, the cleverness. Like, oh, hang on, there's no life forms aboard. Like, because they're not organic matter. They're robots. Can't they see, like, frequencies going on in there? Like, in this
knows?
Galaxy far, far away, where they have giant, flying ships that can travel intergalactically. Like, they can't identify droids in a little escape pod. That seems a little like some undersight there.
Yeah, it's whatever. But listen, they have a literal like vent in their Death Star that leads to its core. So clear. I don't care if it was retconned that Galen or so did it on purpose. It's this movie is full of contrivances. That's not the point. You're supposed to just sit back and enjoy the adventure.
I'll tell you what. I don't even think that was a retcon. If you think about it.
It is a retcon because there's no excuse provided in the first film.
But the first film doesn't talk about how it's like how that wasn't the case or anything.
Well, it's just they just determine that it's a port that leads to the
ventilation shaft or whatever. Yeah, but I don't know.
So yes, but by saying it's a bad retcon because it's not a question raised in the series. It's a question raised by the fans, and so the Rogue One had to go out of its way to explain it. Whereas if it was something that was a question raised in the movie, then that changes things. That makes it more of a better retcon. But it's more of like Star Wars answering a fan question than clearing up a plot detail. But at the same time, these are all just contrivances just to make the film happen. It's like Alfred Hitchcock said, why don't people in murder mysteries or scary movies, why don't they just call the police? It's because then there wouldn't be a movie.
I don't know.
It's why didn't
I feel like I'm going to disagree with that point still, but I don't have my reasoning just yet. I will build up my argument and I'll tell you.
Why didn't the Empire have anything that they could scan for robots? Because if they did, then there wouldn't be a movie.
Okay, that part I get. That I understand. But I'm talking about the ventilation.
Why
shaft.
is there...
I'll talk about it.
It's... well, yeah. Okay,
anyway. Actually, now that I think about it, I know my other favorite shot in this entire film.
Is it the spinning out the window of the escape pod?
Hell no. But it does have to do with R2d2 and C3po as they're on their journey on Tatooine, a desert planet, full of mystery.
Man, what a galaxy to live in! That every planet has just one topographical feature.
I was actually going to say, like, you look at you look across the Star Wars films, right? You look at all the desert planets that we've been introduced to, right? Original Tatooine. We also get Jakku later on, and then you get that other one, Jeddah, and then what was the one in Rise of Skywalker that they went to?
Oh,
I forget it. But they have like they have the Sun Festival or whatever it is. So the two similarities between Jeddah and that one is that they were both shot in Jordan, right? And the thing is, like, usually, like, if you look at the
Kijimi, by the way, is in Rise of Skywalker.
No, I thought Kijimi was the planet that got destroyed. I think we may be
pretty sure it's Kijimi.
I don't know. That's besides the point. But if you look at some of the differences,
Pasana.
That's definitely it. Anyways, I'm getting outside the point. But, like, you look at the differences in the type of deserts that they're shooting in, like the Tunisia desert from the first, from Star Wars, and then from what is it? Where they shot Episode 1, the Phantom Menace. Yeah, Phantom Menace. Bingo. It's the same location versus, and it's also considered to be the same planet. But you look at what was it in Mandalorian, the ancient Jedi planet that I talked about that's from the Old Republic as well, but it's just
Tython. Yeah,
Tython. Like, it's a different desert because that's like they shot it in Mojave or wherever, maybe somewhere in Texas. I forget where exactly they shot it. Still very different type of, like, desert terrain, and it's wonderful that that's represented. But then,
yeah, it's good for continuity.
But I'll tell you what, I don't think they did a good job separating Jeddah and Pasana because they filmed both.
Maybe
in the same
if
area.
they didn't shoot all of their planets as desert planets, maybe things would be better. Maybe if they gave us something we haven't seen yet.
Imagine if they shot in, like, the jungle, like the rainforest or something like that. I could just imagine
we kind of got that in Mandalorian for one episode and then never again.
Wait, in a jungle, or are you talking about, like, on the little
the episode where with Bill Burr's character when they go and Mando has to take his helmet off?
Oh yeah,
that was kind of a jungle world.
Yeah, but I feel like most of that was CG. I feel like if they took, like, the Predator approach, or if they shot somewhere like in the Amazon, I realized that the logistics for that would be insane. And it's probably like you'd have to build something like that rather than go there actually. But
anyway, we're getting way.
I'm
way
getting
off
so
topic.
interested into the minutia of the production.
Yeah. Right. Anyway, so R2d2 C3po, they're really fun characters. What I like about them is that, like, R2d2 doesn't speak; he beeps, but there's enough, like, back and forth between them that you can extrapolate. Like, he has, like, a very fun personality. He's kind of a foul mouth. He's kind of a punk.
Kind of like Chewbacca.
Kind of. Chewbacca, I've always felt, was a very respectful person, whereas R2 is just a little.
I disagree. I never took what R2's beeps and boops as him, like, cursing. I just think R2D2 is definitely the more, like, the one more to risk it all versus C3PO is, like, a tight ass. Like that. Well, I think R2D2 is more of a free spirit, but I don't think he's foul mouthed.
Yeah, well...
Actually, that's a lie.
I think
maybe in Empire he is a little bit, but...
There's a few points where people are like, hey, easy, buddy.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking.
But, yeah, so we get them first. We get to kind of watch them mess around with the Jawas and all that. And then...
Well, the shot where R2's in the... I don't want to call it, like, a ravine.
If you're about to talk about the special edition... we'll get to that in a little bit.
Not that. When he's on his own, away from 3PO, and like you have like that orange light from the sun like hitting all the rocks and everything, putting him in this like, you know, in this kind of creepy, what would you call it?
Atmosphere? I don't know.
No, but like the type of terrain that he's in, like he's surrounded by high walls of rocks.
A canyon?
Yeah, he's in this canyon, and it's just like, oh man, like just the light hitting it. I think I sent you a thing on Instagram. Somebody was talking about like the shots exactly. Like they just look very beautiful. Like the colors and everything. It's probably one of my favorite shots in this film.
But yeah, so obviously they meet Luke. We get our introduction to Luke. And can I just say about Luke, every little thing that people don't like about Rey, it's the exact same scenario with Luke. Everything that makes Rey stand out is what makes Luke stand out. So anyone who has a problem with Rey should therefore have a problem with Luke Skywalker, which is to say they shouldn't have a problem because Luke Skywalker is cool, which means Rey is cool.
Rey is cool.
And Rey, like Luke has so many like contrived like successes in this movie that like any complaint I hear about like how Rey handles the Force or how she understands things too quickly or she's more well equipped to deal with a situation than she should be, it's all the same for Luke. Luke figures out the Force within hours of learning about it, and then within a day he's already able to use the Force to pinpoint fire torpedoes. Like there are plot provided excuses, but it's like Luke. If you give Luke the pass, you gotta give Rey the pass.
Yeah, it's like if Luke can like fly speeders on his thing, Rey, we saw. I guess they're both flying, relatively hovering off the ground, and then they can translate that into actual ships, and we see them both doing that. You know, and if it translates from one to the other, then it should. The only reason why people don't like Rey is based off of sex, unfortunately.
Yeah, because people suck.
People do suck. But no, Luke is a great character. You know, in lots of ways, but. You know, I guess if we're getting into the conversation of the scenes that I want to talk about, when we meet Obi-Wan Kenobi or Ben Kenobi, he's Ben. He in this.
Yeah,
film.
He's Ben. To start, he is Ben. Obi-Wan. That's a name I haven't heard in a long time.
Alec Guinness just does a fantastic job in this movie, and in everything, including sitting down as it goes later on. But you,
it's like my favorite thing in Return.
But like you get that moment where they go back to Ben's house after, you know, Luke got knocked in the head and he's trying to fix him up and they also are trying to fix the droids. That you have this wonderful revealing conversation between them. And even in its first like two opening lines, Luke gets more background about like kind of his past or like also his family.
Right.
That's just so great. Like it's no, my father didn't fight in the wars. He was a navigator on a spice freighter. And then the two lines after that is like, he asks Ben, like, you fought in the Clone Wars? He says, yes, I was once a Jedi Knight, the same as your father. And it's like, oh, dude, like.
It's great because it provides like a cool, like, to quote like one J.J. Abrams, it's a mystery box, you know? It tells you enough that you need to know, to make the world seem a lot more alive and open.
You know, it's funny. It's like those almost seem like throwaway lines. You know,
they do, and that's they're throwaway in the sense of like, oh man, wouldn't it be cool if one day we heard more about the Clone Wars and stuff?
I mean, what's crazy is that like the phrase Jedi Knight does not seem important at all later on through this, but the Force is the important part. Like you get the implementation of the Force, but Jedis could have literally been nothing after this. You know, Clone Wars maybe.
Yeah.
But you know, you then get it's probably one of my favorite things that I think even like the fans and people on YouTube have turned into even more of my favorite thing is like.
The sad Obi-Wan montage.
Yeah. Alec Guinness just talks about like, you know, the background of Luke's father. It's like. You know, he was a cunning warrior, a good pilot, the best pilot in the best pilot in the galaxy, a cunning warrior, and a good friend. And then he asked, "What happened to my father?" Like, dude, it's the face. And then when people do on YouTube, they edit like all the prequel footage and it's just
what you are talking about is actually a film editing effect. It's a you've probably heard of it, the Kuleshov Effect.
Yeah.
Where Lev Kuleshov, he was a filmmaker in Russia, and he posed this idea of like, you show a man making a neutral face and you show another picture of what he is looking at, and you have 6 shots, 3 of him looking, 3 of him looking at different things. And one is of a child in a casket, one is of a bowl of soup, and one is of a woman in recline. And because of that, because of like what we are seeing him look at, we impose our own understanding of emotion onto his neutral face. And I think that's what a lot of people do with that scene with Obi-Wan, because he doesn't really, I mean, he talks about it in like the things of like, you know, the Clone Wars and talking about Luke's father. He says it with kind of like a world weariness, but he doesn't present it as an inherently sad emotion when he says it. But I feel like when you put in a lot of like, you know, you put sad music with it and you show a lot of the scenes from Attack of the Clones and Revenge of the Sith, then suddenly that scene does take on a much more sad effect. But
even then, like in just context of the film itself, because the film doesn't have all those editing techniques, but it does.
Well, of course,
play. I think it makes a little more of a subtle version of what we saw in Jaws, right? With the captain of the Orca, Quint, excuse me.
Yeah.
And it still plays very well because, you know, he's still locked into this almost PTSD kind of moment, and then kind of breaks from it and looks at Luke, says, well, you must learn the ways of the Force if you're going to travel with me. And it brings, I don't know, a really good sense of like, just...
I feel like if I just watch the scene in and of itself, if I completely shut out everything else Star Wars, if I am just watching this as someone in 1977 who has no other understanding of Star Wars beyond what I am seeing, I think it's a little more neutral than that. But when you take everything into account, yes, then I think you can read a lot more into his delivery of the line. But you got to remember, at the time when he delivered those lines, Alec Guinness wasn't thinking about all these things. He probably had a very vague notion of what Obi-Wan had been through.
No, but at the same time, if you look at like culturally or like, you know, politically what was happening in the world, like this film came out like kind of toward the end of Vietnam, right? People can relate to being soldiers and like losing friends.
No, absolutely.
I don't know. I still think with context of the time,
you're not wrong.
That like this could still be a very powerful scene.
It is. It's great, and also Luke looks directly into the oculus of his lightsaber at one point.
The childlike wonder.
Right. But I want to talk, with Obi-Wan, because, Alec Guinness, I think, even in the moments where he's not being too serious, he just has this coolness about him that I think is just, that nothing really phases him.
Is it his crazy hair?
No, I think it's just like as he's about to even as he's about to die, he has a calmness about him. This is a man who has been to hell and back, and he's seen everything there is to see, and nothing surprises him. That's like, in the bar, in the cantina, he cuts Ponda Baba's arm off and then just goes about his day, he's so calm and collected.
As if no one has seen a lightsaber in 20 years and that he shouldn't keep that a secret.
Right. It creates, again, problems with once you introduce things like, Order 66.
Yeah, I will blame the rest of the series, but not that scene.
Right. But anyway, what I want to talk about is his fight with Vader, because I think this fight gets a really bad rap because it's slow and it's not exactly the most intricate fight. It's pretty reserved in terms of swordplay in Star Wars. But when they acted out the scene, Lucas directed them saying, these were supposed to be swords. They're heavy, so we can't just have these you're not going to be flipping around and swinging your sword around like a crazy person. It was meant to be more of a realistic sword fight, and and also they didn't really have the hindsight of, or the benefit of having choreographers and stuff,
right,
to really make a savage fight play out. There's a YouTube video someone made. I can't remember who they were.
It was like a reimagining of the fight.
Yeah, and they made the whole thing with like modern day level action, and it sucks. I hate the video so much.
You know what's funny? It's like I thought I read in your notes that you did like it, and I was going to say, like, Zach, I do not like this at all, because I think it takes away a lot of the context of the fight. It's
so just. It's like they have like Obi-Wan flipping around and like Vader like running at him and like smashing.
These are two older men, that like
one of them
tired.
is like one of them is like 90% robot.
Yeah.
And the other is an old man. They're not gonna be like, peak. Personally for me, lightsaber fights were always interesting when there was like when they were grounded. Mm-hmm. Like the original trilogy, and then some of the fights we got in the sequel trilogy. But like I really don't care much for the prequel trilogy lightsaber fights, because I think they lose themselves a bit. Like, I like Revenge of the Sith, but the fight between Obi-Wan and Anakin goes on way too long and is just obnoxious by the end. Whereas here, listen, this fight isn't exactly breathtaking, but it's more about the characters. It's more about, Darth Vader coming up on his old master, and Obi-Wan recognizing that he has to take one for the team to give the resistance its chance to strike back.
I'd also say, like, I think there's also that line that Ben delivers. That's strike me down now and I will become more powerful than you'll ever imagine. And which is true, like we do get that sense that like after that he's gone and Luke goes into full on depression for all of 5 minutes.
For a guy he's known for like 2 hours.
Exactly. That Obi-Wan did become something more, like, because now he's able to still communicate with Luke and give him whatever guidance he may still need, in however, small bursts, how many small bursts that it is, but it's just like, it's enough for what we need for the story. And I think like, it also says like mind over matter, it's another thing.
I think it's great. And again, we come to a point where a line is in the first film that creates a problem going forward for the writers of Kenobi, who have decided that the Kenobi series that's coming out, that they've decided there is going to be a rematch in between Obi-Wan and Darth Vader.
Yeah, I'm not really sure.
And there's literally the line when he says, "When I left you, I was but the learner. Now I am the master." And it's like, yeah, when they last fought, when they were on Mustafar, he was still the pupil of Obi-Wan.
At least that's the context that we were given when Revenge of the Sith came out. But then there's also the lines like, "I haven't felt this presence since," and then
right, yeah, he kind of trails off.
So we don't know. Maybe he's still considered a learner 10 years later.
A learner, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah.
I just like.
I don't.
I always like the idea that they had their scuffle on Mustafar, and then they didn't see each other again for a long time. But
that
I'm withholding judgment until I see Kenobi.
Yeah, that's the thing. I've always been a little skeptical about it, but we'll see. We will. Listen. I love Ewan McGregor. I think he really does embody the role very well.
He's the best part. He's the best part about the prequels.
But I'm still a little hesitant as to how they're going to handle everything else. So we don't know.
Hey, here's a thing that I don't think anyone ever gets tired of saying.
What's that?
Han Solo is a cool fucking dude.
He is. He's a cool dude.
Man, what they just distilled swagger and confidence into like one character, and I've heard people make the observation that everyone in Star Wars is playing, is in a fantasy like story, and Han Solo is just a normal contemporary dude.
No, he's still playing a fantasy like character. He's a space pirate, for better or worse.
Yeah, and I mean he's like kind of like almost like an audience voice where he's like, oh come on, the Force, that's ridiculous, you know. He says what we think, and he's the person to kind of have the most differing.
He's a realist. He's a real
personality.
He's a realist. You know, he's not an idealist or anything. He's trying to make a buck and find his way and do his thing.
And you know, he has the most dynamic character growth of any character in this. He goes from being a person who doesn't care about anything, he just wants his money, and he's not the type of person to lay down on the wire and let someone crawl over him.
Yeah, you're absolutely right.
And then by the end, he is instrumental in destroying the Death Star.
I agree 1,000%. I'm glad you brought that up, because you know what? Like, we're established this guy that, like, he's we get earlier on, you know, he's you know, he takes his shots in order for him to get away, right? He is in debt, and he doesn't fulfill his duties. Remember, we get the whole Greedo scene. Han shot first, I guess I should preface.
Yeah. Yeah, and we'll talk a little bit about that in a minute.
No, I mean, well, it kind of goes into what I'm saying right now. Like, you know, we that's his earliest kind of real character interaction, where we find out, okay, he doesn't fulfill all of his promises. You know, like he's just trying to look for like the quickest and easiest way for him to get something done, and if it involves him having to actually just do transport for these guys rather than having to pick up a shipment of whatever and then deliver it, but then he has to drop it all when he sees the Imperial Star Cruisers. Like, you know, we can just already tell where his priorities are at. But also, he's not afraid to defend himself. You know?
No, he's as Princess Leia puts, he's very mercenary.
Yeah.
Or quite the mercenary, I should say.
Yeah.
And I just, I really like his character. I like that he's, I mean, and again, this kind of, we're getting into George Lucas's changes here, but I like that he's not a good person.
No,
at least in the beginning. He's, first of all, he's a spice smuggler. He smuggles drugs. You know, if you're gonna change the fact that he's a killer, how are you not gonna change the fact that he smuggles drugs?
I think it's just the idea that, like, oh, is he killing because he's being attacked? Because Luke kills because he's being attacked, or I
think it's,
you know,
it makes him a much more complex and interesting character that he does kill.
I agree on
a whim.
I don't think there's any reason for him to change.
You know, well, George Lucas, his quote about changing that scene was mainly that he saw in the grander mythology that Han Solo was meant to be more of like a John Wayne character. At least that's what he says.
John Wayne played plenty of bad guys.
I know. He played Rooster Cogburn.
Yeah.
But like, I don't know. I just think. So there's a concept of like death of the author, that once someone puts out a piece of art, it doesn't matter what their intention was, it belongs to the audience, and how the audience interprets it should be, you know, that is how it should be taken. Once it's out in the world, the author no longer has the right to go back and say, well, no, this is what I meant by it. It doesn't matter what the author meant by it. It just matters how the art is perceived. So when he comes back, well, I mean, it is what it is, you know. I am a firm believer in that. I mean, it's okay to come back and be like, well, here's what I intended, but you read into it however you like,
right?
Because it doesn't matter what it matters how the art made you feel, not what the art was about.
Can I tell you something?
And so, yes,
that logic kind of sucks by the time we get to the later Star Wars films.
Well, it's because George Lucas refuted the death of the author mindset. He used to be a champion of preserving a film in its original form. He was against the colorization of black and white films. And then suddenly it became his film, and suddenly he felt that the film in its original form wasn't the film he intended to make. He wanted all these extra things, and he had a whole scene filmed with Jabba the Hutt, who was like a dude dressed in like like a Renaissance fair.
I liked that guy. I gotta be honest. That version I did enjoy. But you know what? We never needed that scene.
We didn't.
My last viewing of this film was actually the original like theatrical release, which getting your hands on is interesting because it's not available almost anywhere. In fact,
yeah. Most people believe that they've actually destroyed the like original film reel of the theatrical cut.
I mean, I'll tell you what. I will tell you what. I think I've been waiting to say this on this podcast since I sent you this text, Zach. I have insider knowledge. I have a friend I'll call him a friend, who owns a 35 millimeter print of an unedited theatrical cut of Empire Strikes Back. He owns one half of the film on 35 millimeter. He has the latter two reels. He's missing the first two because each one's about like 40-minute like long reels or something like that. Mm-hmm. So they exist. Getting your hands on them is something else. And then making sure that they're restored to the perfect, playability is also another thing. But like, technically they are very illegal to own. And getting your hands on them.
And his name and address is.
No, actually, I know where they're located because the only reason why I know them is because I saw them on his reel, and I'm like, oh, what are these that you have here? And then I saw the label on one of them, and then I kind of spooled out a little bit of the reel, and I put it under some light, and I'm like, oh, no way. It was incredible, and I asked him about it.
And his name is
Bobby Boberson.
Jimmy Callahan.
His name is Alistair Star Wars.
But yeah, man. So hey, now that we're on the topic, let's talk about some of these changes. Because, man, some of the changes are I think fine, but most of the changes are unnecessary. Yeah, some
are incredibly unnecessary.
So obviously, there's the one where it's like that like 360 shot of the X-wings leaving Yavin 4 to go to the Death Star.
I like that. I'll be honest, I like that.
That's cool. That's fine.
I like how they added the 3D the models versus just the whatchamacallits. The virtual
the
models. Yeah, CG versus the original ones. I'm okay for that. Like, that never bothered me.
It's fine. And then there's the scene in the hangar right before they leave where Luke reunites with Biggs.
I love that.
Biggs Darklighter, because everyone has to have a Star Wars name.
I don't think that scene has any context, though, without the original Biggs scene, though.
Yeah.
And which was never even put in the original film. It was always a deleted scene.
Right, but I mean, at least, listen, Biggs dies in the attack,
mm-hmm.
and so it's like, to not have that in the film, is to say, like, okay, this guy just died, am I supposed to care? But when we get to see him palling around with Luke, it does add a little bit of,
you know what?
Weight to his death.
I am wrong. They mention him in wording on Tatooine when Luke is talking.
Yeah.
But then, like, and then I guess in the special edition, every version after, he has that conversation in the hangar.
Right. Oh, just like back in Beggar's Canyon.
Exactly. But are you familiar with the deleted scene where he's like talking to Luke on the rooftop about like how he's leaving for the academy and stuff like that?
Right.
You see, I kind of wish solely that scene was put into the film as well, because it does. I think it adds more. But if they're only going to have that or just the later scene and not the original, or just working off the dialogue, I don't know. I do think it's kind of a waste. Yeah, because you know what? I mean, they don't have the Porkin scene earlier in the film.
It's at least not like, it's not intrusive and it's not offensive. Like, come on, the Jabba scene, because they decided to use like this terrible CGI Jabba and this like horribly composited Han Solo as he's walking around Jabba. He walks around and you can see that they've literally just clipped Harrison Ford and are moving the picture up and around Jabba so he steps on his tail.
And also, like, putting his neck all the way to the left or whatever. But you know what sucks is, like, that didn't even need to be in the movie because what happened earlier with just the passing of Jabba just in dialogue made it for his reveal in Return of the Jedi so much stronger.
Right.
You know,
you get to see 2 films of
just passing dialogue about Jabba.
Hitmen who have been sent by Jabba to either kill or capture Han Solo. It's like, okay, he is sending hitmen after this guy. He's dangerous. That's all we need to know. We don't need to see him.
Exactly. And you don't even know if this guy is alien or human or anything. So then you get this reveal like, oh, this is
he's a
Jabba.
big slug dude.
Yeah, like that. It made for an awesome reveal, I have to say.
Yeah, it's great. And he's a giant physical puppet as opposed to a horrible CGI monstrosity.
Yeah.
And then, of course, then there's an even later release of the film where they also put Boba Fett into the scene, and then when everybody walks out of frame, Boba Fett just stands there for a second before also walking out of frame. Like, did you see it? Did you see Boba Fett? He's there now. We added him. Did you see? We made it really obvious.
Yeah, that one I never bothered me, but whatever. I'll tell you the little one that did bother me. Because every time
I know what you're gonna say.
Every time a special edition of this fucking movie came out, R2d2 has been hidden more and more behind rocks, and it's like, dude, we get it. He's behind rocks.
Well, they've done it to the point that it's like there's no physical way that he could have gotten back there.
Yeah, and it's like, dude, relax.
Yeah, it's I part of me is like, it's his movie, let him
not anymore.
Let him
it's Disney's movie.
Yeah, it is. And I would recommend anybody who is interested in this.
Please tell me something. How is it that fans have rallied behind Zack Snyder and voted for there to be a Snyder cut with whatever interest was generated, and yet there's been so much interest generated in Star Wars theatrical cuts and nothing has been done?
Because they don't have the theatrical cuts. They've destroyed them.
Dude, there are copies of them. There are copies.
Sure, I'm sure there are, but I just think that George Lucas, he made this film, and I think he had a lot of trouble just kind of letting it go, because he had all these grand ambitions for it that they couldn't do at the time for budgetary reasons and production reasons, and just the technology at the time didn't allow for it.
Yeah.
And I think it's always been a source of like shame for him.
Oh my god. Dude.
Which it's stupid.
Sorry that you made $4 billion off of Star Wars. I'm so sorry that your art suffered at the rate. He died as an artist after the release of this film.
Maybe.
It was his peak. Star Wars, the original, was his peak.
I would say, like, listen, there is stuff of value in the prequels, and like that's the thing we'll see. Like he worked with Lawrence Kasdan and what's his name for Return of the Jedi and Empire, but like when you get to the prequels, it was literally written, directed, produced by George Lucas. It was him, his decisions. The producer was
Rick McCallum.
Yeah,
who retired after Disney purchased.
Yeah, but I mean, at the same time, it was all just him. It was all just his vision of, Star Wars. No one to tell him no. No one to say, I don't think you should do this. And we kind of got like one good film and 2 kind of bad films. So that's my opinion. You can think what you want, but his artistry kind of leveled off at this movie.
Yeah, we'll thanks, guy, for all that you've done.
I mean, listen, without him, we would not have Star Wars. My recommendation for anyone listening this, your homework assignment is to watch the documentary The People vs. George Lucas, which I happen to know. I'm not telling you to watch it in this way. You should pay people for their work. But I happen to know that the whole film is on YouTube.
I had to watch it for school. Didn't I tell you that? Like when I was in film school, one of the classes I took, we had to watch it. I forget what class was it. It was like political film and fiction or something like that.
it's a really good documentary all about like how he created Star Wars, and then his all the stuff he did with the special editions, and then the whole debacle with the prequels and how they were perceived with when they first came out, which was not well. So it's a really interesting. It really cuts to like the to the core of like who George Lucas was at the time, who he became, why he made some of the decisions he made, and I think it's a very interesting way to understanding how maybe he came to the conclusion that these changes needed to be made, even though I fundamentally disagree with him.
There is one part about the characters we have not discussed yet.
What's that?
She's probably, the one of the greatest, if not the greatest pinnacles of Star Wars, which is Princess Leia. Carrie Fisher, who just always was like, she's as much as Han Solo, just the definition of cool. Well, actually, I wouldn't just say cool, but like, she's hilarious. I gotta say, her dynamic with everybody in this is just, she owns every scene she's in, especially when they get out of the trash can.
It's funny because I think this was one of her first films, if not her first, and it's really fun. It's you can see where they through various like I guess cuts that they used. She starts the movie with a bit of an accent.
I wanted to talk about that. Like, what's up with the accent that she had? Is this just something that she put up like as a political front, but then in actuality she went like
maybe
hard-headed? Like,
I mean, if that's the headcanon you want to go with, then go for it. I just think it's a quirky thing about this movie, kind of like how when after he destroys the Death Star, when Mark Hamill hops out of the X-wing and hugs her, he's like Carrie, and not Leia.
I actually don't know. I don't think I ever realized that.
Yep, he jumps out and he shouts Carrie.
Oh no, I did not know that.
That's okay. And but I like about Princess Leia is that she is a damsel in distress until she gets out of her cell, and then she is just as like
a force to be reckoned with as much as any of these other guys. If anything, Luke is probably like the worst in this movie.
Yeah, he's kind of bumbling around, but like, she takes a blaster and she joins in on the fight, and she's actually killing stormtroopers and stuff.
Will somebody get the swapping carpet out of my way?
Right. She's got an attitude, which is really funny. She doesn't really play to that princess archetype, and she, I think she was a great female icon for cinema, strong and confident and resourceful.
Yeah, I think they've always played her in a really great light. Honestly, like, I feel like even maybe at the end, like after we get off the Death Star, they didn't give her much, which is kind of a shame because you gave us this like really great character moments with her and like their escape. But then after the fact, we just made it Luke's show, and then we gave Han Solo another light, and then what? Now Leia's presenting medals, which is it's the unfortunate part. But I mean, then again, she gets a lot of really good kind of character building in some of the later films, like Empire
and
especially.
She gets to belt out a really cool song in the holiday special.
Yeah. If you're really curious as to what Zach and I thought about the Star Wars holiday special, please check out our earlier episodes, as we did one last holiday season.
It's great, and you'll find out about the dark mystery of Chewbacca's marriage.
Let me tell you something. Is that the Star Wars holiday special and this film, I very closely related as they were filmed. I mean, very close in proximity. But like Empire and every Star Wars after this movie takes like a drastic turn of like, okay, let's ground this in some other type of Star Wars-esque thing, and let's make this more exciting. Like this this film really established Star Wars as like I said, fun adventure, and but it's also very different than anything else that we've been given in this universe. Like
no other film is quite like this film.
No, not at all.
Like most people say, like, oh yeah, the Episode 7 is just a remake of
It's still very different.
Star Wars. It's so different.
Thematically, it's different. Comedically, maybe share some clips, but like at the same time,
just all in all, the feeling of it, no Star Wars film feels like this film.
Yeah. This one's also, I feel like, probably the easiest one to watch too.
Yeah, absolutely.
But yeah.
But I guess that is Star Wars in a nutshell.
It's funny. Anytime I want to watch a Star Wars movie, I feel like this is the one that it's like it's either not on TV all the time. I feel like Empire's always on TV, but like it's just this one is probably it's the most refreshing to watch.
Yeah. Sometimes you just have to go back to where things begin and absorb a property in its most pure form, and that's this.
I would agree. Or at least the theatrical version is the most pure. I gotta tell you, I spent my entire life watching the special edition, like the 80s VHS special edition, or maybe there was another one that came out in 90.
It's like 93.
Yeah, I think I watched that one. Now that I think about it, I've seen both versions. Anyways, that's the one I kind of grew up on before, like 2011. They came out with like the Blu-ray, or actually no, I also had the widescreen DVD. So that was like another version.
That's the box set. I'm looking at that box set right now.
My dad has my box set of that at his house, which sounds about right. But like, so it wasn't until maybe in the last year I watched the original versions, or no, it was like right before Rise of Skywalker. So 2 years now. Wow. But I gotta say, for anybody who hasn't seen them, it is like, it does make the movie a lot more enjoyable, or like, just an even easier and more enjoyable watch versus something like, oh, Star Wars, the Star Wars. Like, no, just add a context. Like, if you haven't had the opportunity and you want to like have a true, like, just generally good movie experience, yeah, take a look. You know what? I should also say, it would be awesome if like Rotten Tomatoes had like a review version of both, like every version of Star Wars that's ever happened, and like
I think the changes aren't significant enough
at
to
least
really
from the very
sway.
first to the very last, or like just the first version and then like the latest version,
maybe
because they have two different Justice League scores or whatever, gotta say.
But hey, you know what? I'm gonna leave it off on one sad quote and then a happy quote. So this is via Wikipedia from the Associated Press. Asked why he was opposed to releasing the original versions of the films alongside the modified versions, Lucas stated in 2004, "To me, the original movie doesn't really exist anymore. I'm sorry you saw a half-completed film and fell in love with it, but I want it to be the way I want it to be." What a bitch. Glad he's not in control anymore. But thank you, George, for at least giving us such a fun world to play in and inspiring creativity for literally generations.
Yeah, and I gotta say, I'm very excited for its newest edition being released this week, as of the release of this podcast,
on Disney Plus.
On Disney Plus, Bad Batch.
Yeah, not an ad, but hey, Disney Plus, hit us up.
Yeah, that would be cool. I'd like to be sponsored by a streaming service. Imagine if we were. Oh, dude.
I would promote the hell out of them.
What if it's like something lame? Like, I don't know. What streaming service do you not have?
Quibi.
Oh god, I think Quibi went under.
Quibi's dead.
Yeah,
it's gone.
That sucks. Sorry, Quibi.
Sorry, Quibi. And on that note, I guess we'll wrap it up for this episode of Scripter Screen.
Thank you so much for tuning in. As always, I've been Christopher Kitchen. That is Zach Strackman. You can find us at Scripter Screen on all of our social medias. You can find us on our website, scripterscreen.com or anchor.fm/Scripter Screen. Listen to our past episodes. Send us messages and comments and concerns. and you have yourselves a wonderful week.
And remember, the Force will be with you. Always.
Always.
Bye.